I'm Silas Maynor, and I did the program in August of 2019 is when I started Praxis. I'm the oldest of 8 kids, so for me, high school was all about just getting it done. I did not care about it whatsoever. I was like, I'm gonna get this thing, I'm gonna get this degree, and I'm gonna move on with my life. I had no intention of really going to college. So for me in high school, it was like, study for the tests, get a good grade, decent grade, and then move on. I did have a 4.0 in my last year of high school. It's a homeschooling program, so there was, still a curriculum to follow. But for me, it was just like, I'm doing this to check the box off. Like, I did develop kind of an interest in some of the subjects that I had, originally not an interest in, like English and reading certain literature. But it wasn't like I was, thrilled about school. I was just trying to get out of my situation I grew up in. So for me, Praxis came about because it's a very weird connection. I had worked in insurance sales for about a year and a half after I turned 18 and was pretty good at it, but realized that there was I wanted something more in life. I wasn't really thrilled by the future prospects of working in insurance sales for like 10 years. And I was telling some of my friends from church this, and they said, we know this person named Isaac Morehouse, and he's got this company called Praxis. You should check it out. So the connection is that Isaac's married to the cousin of somebody that I know, basically. And they said, check it out. So that's how I learned about Praxis in the first place. So very serendipitous. For me, it was, I don't know if it was unique per se, but I had complete confidence that I could succeed at something. I didn't know exactly what. I was kind of uncertain of the path next, because as I was getting out of insurance sales, I was experimenting with building a business. I knew that at some point I would want to build my own business, but I didn't really know the next step. I was working part-time at a marketing firm doing sales and some of the delivery as well. So I applied to Praxis, and mainly, I'll be honest, like the reason I was quite interested is they said, it's really hard to get in. Like the acceptance rate's super low. And I was like, let me prove these guys wrong. So I got in, and I do remember one thing specifically from the application process. I don't know how it is now, but at the time, the application process asked you to write a blog, and I had never written a blog before, but just the application process made me really think about myself and what I want to be. And I found so much value in just that. So I was like, there's got to be something here. So I get accepted, and then I decided to pause. Like, I didn't accept to join the program right away. I was still kind of hesitant. And mainly, I hadn't fully left the insurance sales role at the time. And I was like, they're telling me I'm going to get a job that at least makes 45 grand a year. And I was making like 70 at the time. So I was like, do I want to go backwards? And I was kind of like golden handcuffs, like in a very small scale. And I kind of put it on pause for a bit. So I didn't accept it right away. Then a few months later, I ended up deciding to leave that opportunity, leave insurance sales fully. And I came back to Praxis to ask to rejoin. And I was mostly convinced by the opportunity to have a network of people. So based on the way that Praxis was sold to me, there's all these other people who have forward tilt, who are really interested in building careers that are on their own terms. Basically, we don't want to be NPCs. And I thought, if I could be surrounded by these people, it should be awesome. Like, I want people like that in my life. And they also had this stat on the website that was I forget the exact number, but a lot of people who do Praxis get a job somewhere else. And I was living in rural Wisconsin, and I wanted to leave. I wanted to get out of my small town. I wasn't necessarily against it, but I wanted to see the world a little bit more. And it's funny in retrospect. I probably could have moved at the time if I wanted to, but I didn't know how to. So I assumed that you need to get a job elsewhere. Somebody needs to give you a job so that you can move, right? So that was part of the draw for me, is that I would have the opportunity to work at a startup. I didn't know what that really meant, but work at a startup in another city and get out of Wisconsin. I ended up getting a full-time offer to move to New York City in February of 2020. So I did the program and finished the modules, went through the job application process, and decided to stay in the job that I had for a bit, because I wasn't able to get a job in Detroit initially. But then somebody in the network, again, going back to the community aspect, I was on a community call and somebody said, hey man, you sound like a sales guy. Do you want a job in New York City? And I was like, let's definitely talk, right? And that was just like super random. I was literally not even on the video call. I was just listening to the Zoom as I was going to get pizza. So I talked to him, and I ended up going out to New York for an interview with the company he was working at because they were recruiting. It's a recruitment company, by the way. So he was recruiting for the recruitment company, and it did an interview. They didn't decide to move forward with me right away. But they said, hey, maybe you should look into it more. And in the meantime, this same guy ended up getting a job at a different recruitment firm and said, hey, come talk to these guys. They're better anyways. So I talked to them, and I guess I ended up impressing the founder enough that he's like, let's give this kid a shot, right? They weren't actually going to hire until April of 2020, and keep in mind, we all know what happened in 2020. So they weren't going to hire until April, but they came back to me after the interview process and said, you know what, we're going to hire you anyways. So can you come out here in a week and a half? So I packed my 3 suitcases, and they flew me out to New York City. They put me up in an Airbnb for 2 weeks while I found a place, and the rest is history. And I get this opportunity to move to New York City. I get on a one-way ticket to New York City. This was March 2nd of 2020. The whole day, I remember this flight. I'm taking this flight out there. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it again. It was a two flight travel to get out there, and even in my layover, the whole time, all I was thinking to myself, what the heck am I doing? Am I doing the wrong thing? There's this excitement and fear. And I had visited New York City once, but or twice. I'd visited New York City twice. So I knew a little bit about the city, but I didn't have, family money. I didn't have I had barely had a couple $1,000s of savings. I didn't have anything, right? So for me, this was I have to make this work. It's not like I have somebody who can bail me out if I need to get flown back or whatever. So I didn't have an apartment lined up. I had to figure all this out. So a lot of fear. What it was like was a lot of fear. And I will say on the personal side, leaving my younger siblings was tough. I was 20 years old at the time, and my youngest brother is 16 years younger than me. So he would have been, 4. And that day was tough. The day before, we had a going away party, and I just I'll share it, but it was really tough. One of my brothers and I, we were playing Smash Bros. We're hanging out, playing Smash Bros. And I can just remember the look on his face. He's like, are you sure you can't play one more game? And I was like, oh, dude, don't do that to me. And we played another game, of course. And he kicked my ass, by the way. And he was like, I don't know, he's way younger, but he's just whooping us. Anyways. But that was tough. I will say that was the hardest thing was leaving my siblings, because I'm the oldest, so I'm kind of like a father figure to them in some ways. But I will say it was worth it, because the eye-opening that I had through that experience of moving to this place, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Definitely, trust me, I had all those songs queued up. I had the New York songs, Welcome to New York, Taylor Swift, Frank Sinatra, New York City, all these things, right? There was definitely that thought in my head, if I can do this, it's gonna be great. I still had fear, I still had uncertainty of whether or not I could do it, because I was raised with such a lack of self-confidence that I was super fearful. But at the same time, I will say that something about Praxis and being part of the community kind of gave me a feeling, even if it was uncertain, a feeling of swagger that, I got into this program, they're counting me in this group. I think I can make it. So that's kind of how it was. But I remember, I get to the airport in New York, I take an Uber to my Airbnb, and I've got 3 suitcases, that's all I've got. And I get out, and it's 3 stories of stairs I gotta walk up with my suitcases. I'm take 2 inside. I hope the other one doesn't get stolen. Anyways, it was crazy, it was exhausting. And I think it was, I don't know if it's that day or the next day, there was a moment where I just broke down in tears of what the heck is going on? This is crazy. And it's not even because I felt like I made the wrong decision. It's just that there's so much emotion going through you, and you have no idea what the future holds. It's it felt like a movie. So, yeah. So, again, remember this, the dates. I start my job March 3rd, 2020. 2-3 weeks later, the entire world shuts down, right? I was everybody was freaking out. I was in New York City for crying out loud, man. If anything's gonna go south, it's gonna go south in New York City. So it was very fearful when that happened. And I'll go back to the beginning of the job and stuff. But there was definitely a moment where it's man, what's going on here? And I stuck with it, actually. So I ended up living in New York City pretty much for the entire 4 years, the following 4 years, even through COVID and the pandemic and everything. Basically, I stuck with it. So I think that what it really comes down to is I had committed that this had to work, and I wasn't going to retreat. I probably could have gotten somebody to fly me back to Wisconsin, or I probably could have afforded the one-way ticket back, because again, all I had was 3 suitcases, right? But I wasn't going to do that, because part of me, there's so many people when I left that said, I didn't actually necessarily know this at the time. I found out later that a lot of people were saying, yeah, he's not going to make it. He'll come back. He'll be back. So when I actually went back to visit for the first time, like a few months later, I was like shaking. I was afraid. I was like, what happens if I go back to Wisconsin to visit and I end up staying? Like, will they be right? The chip on my shoulder, is it like, am I gonna make it? So that's like a side part of the story. But on the career side, the summary is I had been doing sales calls for a year and a half with insurance sales, but the first 2 weeks were brutal, man. I was sitting in this 4-person office next to my boss from Australia, and I'm just forced to like pick up the phone and make calls, because I got to talk to candidates. I got to get used to it. I got to know how to talk to these people. And this is not even nearly as hard as doing like cold call outbound sales, because you're talking to people about opportunity. You're calling them with a potential life-changing role, right? Increase their income, increase their career, whatever. But it was scary. Even though I had done it for a year and a half, I was like mostly scared of the fact that I'm right here getting judged by this my boss, right? And I don't think I was afraid of getting fired, but there was some kind of fear there, basically. And I think it might have come down from like a perception piece, but I pushed through it. And despite, the world changing and everybody going remote, I ended up making my first deal about 5 months in, which is a pretty long time. In the recruitment world, that's not like great numbers. To do your first deal in almost, it was just shy of 5 months. That's not great. Usually people will do it like 3, 4. But I landed that deal, and then by the end of that year, I had done, I might get the numbers a little bit wrong. I'm just pulling from memory here. I had done, I think, 170,000 in revenue for my billing, because we're doing a consulting service basically, right? I think it was about 170 grand in my first year, which is pretty decent. It's not like world breaking. Like top billers will usually get to like 600 plus, but that was my first year. And I remember getting I believe it was I forget the name of it. I think it's called the Rookie of the Year award, or Rising Star. That's might have been what it was, Rising Star award that year, which felt really good. And I enjoyed being part of this culture. Then the next year was crazy. The next year, I ended up hiring my first. I became a manager. I hired somebody. I'm trying to remember if I hired 1 or 2 people that year. I think it was 1. And I remember my boss saying that if you can do like 400,000 in revenue in your first full year, so kind of like my second year, that would be incredible. And he said it in a way that was like, you're not going to do that, but if you did, it'd be crazy. And I did like 420 or something close to that the first year. And I had made my first hire. So I ended up basically getting promoted up the ranks to principal consultant. I think it was the second fastest in the company. It was either first or second fastest, I can't remember. And I also won another award that year I can't remember specifically the award that year. But then the next year, I ended up hiring even more people. I had a team of 4 people at max. And all these people were older than me, by the way. So, at this time, I would have been 22. And managing a team of 4 at peak, I forget the exact P&L I was responsible for. But there was one year that I hit, I think my biggest year, oh man, I'm really struggling to remember the numbers there. I think the biggest year was the 400 year. The next year was a little different because I had a distributed team. But point is, I rose really quickly and became also the quickest person to make it to team lead, which is kind of like the highest, general position in the company. And then after that, it's kind of like managing director and stuff like that. So I wasn't, that wasn't something I was necessarily aiming towards, but it was fast, right? So in 4 years, I had achieved a lot. And most of this happened within the course of about 3.5 years. But also during this time, the best part of my life, and this is why I'm actually the most grateful to Praxis, is I ended up meeting my wife, my now wife. We met in New York City through the dating apps, I will admit, but she's this beautiful woman from Uganda, and it changed my life. And I every time I think about this, I get a bit emotional because I'm just some country kid from the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. I grew up in the middle of nowhere. You go out and you see trees. There's no neighbors, there's no suburbs, there's no town. It's just woods everywhere you look. And she grew up in Kampala, Uganda, and ended up in New York City, and we met there. Like, the chances of this are crazy. And, you know, I know God plays a role in this, but obviously Praxis also played a role in this. If it wasn't for Praxis, you know, maybe I would have met somebody like her, but I did not meet her. So that's like one of the biggest reasons I'm actually grateful to Praxis, honestly. But we got married in 2023, and during this whole time, like, there was some incredible wins on the professional side. We had gone through a sale, the company had gone through a sale, and because I was involved pretty early with the US launch, I was able to get a nice bonus from it. It wasn't technically equity, but I got a big bonus from that. So there was a year that I made so much money that I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is crazy. I'm making more than, you know, I don't know the exact numbers, but I would have been a very, very top percentage earner in the United States. And I thought to myself, how is this possible? Like, I barely believed I could make $100,000 a year when I was a kid, you know, from the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. Like, I was like, if I can make $100,000 a year, I can have a family, it'll be great. But here I was making like way more than that. And I was just so grateful to this opportunity. Obviously I had to put in the work for it, but that's kind of the trajectory. I started my business after 4 years of working in recruitment for this other company, for the company I worked for out of Praxis. And it's very straightforward. I do the same exact thing that I used to do, but for myself, or on my own, I should say, for similar clients. And the biggest accomplishments, number one, is having the ability to do what I want with my time. Getting to the point where once the business was making money, because I already knew how to do recruitment, obviously, so I wasn't too worried about that. But once I started actually making some money, it was amazing to me that I could choose, you know, to go to church every day, to spend time with my wife, to spend time with our daughter, and I didn't have to tell HR, right? I can take a sick day if I need to. I can, you know, if there's something crazy going down with family stuff, I can take it. I can just do it. And to me, that's my most proudest accomplishment, is that I have that flexibility to do so. The other thing I would say I'm pretty proud of as well is sticking with it, because I think that there was a time about a year into running my own business where somebody had approached me who was a recruiter and a headhunter that I really looked up to. And we were kind of exploring the idea that I might join his firm. And it was during this time that I actually ended up getting to meet one of my heroes, Sam Parr. He's the founder of The Hustle. He now runs a company called Hampton, and many people might know him from My First Million podcast. And it turns out that he and this other guy are actually really close friends. And I talked to Sam and I said, you know, what should I do in this situation? He's like, you just got to stick with it, man. Because I was, again, about a year into, I was a little less than a year. I was like, you know, 10 months or something like that into running my own business. And he's like, just stick with it, and you will see the compounding, right? Yes, it's hard now, but it'll keep growing every year. And before you know it, you'll be a millionaire, because it doesn't take that much effort, or I shouldn't say it's not that much effort. It's just a matter of time until you succeed, but you got to stick with it, because we're so impatient as young people. And I think this is difficult in our careers. We want to achieve everything all at once, but you have to stick with it for a period of time to see the success. And I'd say that's the thing I'm most proud of, because I actually just had this realization very recently, is that now that I've gotten to this point where my bills are paid, I can choose how to spend my time. I have the flexibility to travel. I don't have to be super worried about how much I'm spending on a monthly basis. I have a family. I have everything I've ever wanted, really, man. And because of that, it has given me such a confidence that I could go talk to some famous person. I could talk to somebody who, runs like a $100 billion fund, and I don't get intimidated by them anymore, because I have what I need. Yeah, of course I want to achieve more, but I have all the things I ever wanted, and I'll keep working towards more, but I'm very grateful for what I do have. And I feel like I probably have the things I want even more than them sometimes. Like, they might have things that they thought they wanted, and now they realize they don't want, but they're too invested to throw in the towel. My family has been very important to me. I've stayed very close to my siblings throughout this whole experience, because I didn't mention this, but my primary source of motivation has been to help them to exit the situation that we grew up in. And without getting into it, it wasn't positive. We definitely came from nothing, let's put it that way. So for me, I would say don't be afraid to pursue your own goals and to grow, because you will end up much better off. You'll be much more able to help them to see the world differently. So for me, like, I was pretty ambitious, but moving to New York and living there really widened my aperture for thinking about the world and what's possible, because I was a 20-year-old kid who now was working with this multinational, it's a small company, but there's people from all over the world, like a small consultancy that has like 25, 30 employees when I joined, and they're all over the world. So now I have a global network. Yes, it's not a huge network, but these are people that I work closely enough with that if I ever wanted to, I can say, hey man, I'm coming to Singapore, can I stay with you? Or do you know anybody? Like, it just really started to help me. So because of that, now I have a different perspective on life that I can actually go and bring back to my siblings to help them out in a way. And financially speaking, I can help them out in ways like we're helping contribute to my brother getting his pilot's license, right? There's different things that you can do, but I would just encourage you to stay engaged with them. Give them an opportunity to come fly out and meet you. Give them, spend time with them when you are back. Have lunch with them. There's so many things you can do when you have that exposure and you're a little bit more stable. Your siblings will also look up to you, right? And I don't mean this in a way of like, don't do this just for the sake of this outcome, but when you are not close to them, when you are far away, it creates a certain desire for them to want to hang out with you more. So they actually like you more when you come back, right? There's things like that. Obviously, you got to build good character, but the answer is, like, I think the tendency for the oldest is especially to be very sacrificial and to say, I can't do these things on my own because I need to help them. But in many cases, you can help them more by building your career and having some sort of stability. Again, it depends on what specific like circumstances you're looking at, but you can have your own kind of anchor and they can be drawn to come work with you.